Hey guys! I'm working on thumbnails for a comic right now. It's a fan comic. It is for South Park, the characters, Tweek and Craig. I'm basically doing like a college AU where they don't know each other. Like, the friends kind of know each other and it's all kind of intermingled, serendipitous events happen. Because I kind of really love old romancy stories and stuff like that because I'm a big sap. Anyways, so why thumbnailing is important, and especially it is important in comics and doing layouts and understanding, like, doing these little things, is it gets your storytelling down, B, it allows you to draw out the comic really fast and see what's working and what's not, so then you can make edits later. And to edit a small thing is way easier than to edit like a giant page and you realize, oh shit, this page isn't working. And thumbnails, just, they are where you can make your mistakes. So when I was in animation and it also overlapped into illustration, you've got your three main shots. You've got your establishing, your mid, actually there's four, sorry. There's a long shot, which is also the establishing shot, your mid shot, which is usually like the middle of the character, like this would be a mid shot because it's like waist up, and then your close up, which there's also the extreme close up, which is like you're focusing on one feature of a character, so it's like an eyeball or like their mouth or a hand or something. Extreme close ups they're special shots when you need to emphasize something. Establishing shots, you should always try to work in, even if it's the smallest panel on the page, an establishing shot. The establishing shots give you, well, as it says, it establishes where the characters are in the scene, what the background is, if there's any objects in the scene that the characters are going to be using later on, like a few pages down, or like even later in the comic. If you establish it early and you keep referencing back to it like kind of periodically throughout, people will realize, okay, there's a gun in that drawer. And when on the last page, when the character pulls out the gun to shoot someone, you knew that there was a gun in that drawer because you saw it in like the first few pages. But basically what establishing shots do is they give like your grounding for your character and they establish where the location is. Sorry. Trying to figure out a pose for this guy here. Some of the models we had when I was in school, I'll get back onto shots in a second, they were so energetic and they had just the greatest poses and they were so dynamic. And then we had the people that were just there for the paycheck and would just stand and they didn't pose right, and you're just like, how are you a model? Like, it's really difficult to draw somebody who has is only there to collect a paycheck. And like the other people were there to collect paychecks, but they brought an energy to the class that was just so phenomenal. Anyways, all right, back to shots. So yeah. When thumbnailing, as I pause dramatically because I'm trying to figure out the next panel, it's really hard to talk and think. This whole process of thumbnailing, and like you have your script of like what you want or your outline of your comic, this is the most thought, like you have to put so much thought into your comics because A, they need to read right. You need to have directional lines leading your eye through the page. Your speech bubbles need to lead your eye through the page. you have to think of so many things, and this is why I trip myself up a lot when I'm drawing comics, is because I'm overthinking, and I feel like that is I'm just thinking too much. I used to be able to just draw comics and it was fine, but now I think about every panel and I think, okay, what can I put in this panel? Is the panel leading my eye to the next panel? Is this panel a sustained illustration in and of itself? Is it interesting enough? There's so many things to think about when you're doing comics. And this should be a part of my comic book getting ideas and stuff series, and eventually it will be, but this is just the thing that I was working on today, so I wanted to draw it. It doesn't matter, like, if you look at manga, some manga, they won't have an establishing shot for like pages. They'll just have talking heads, and it depends, like, you have to realize though, like, manga artists do like almost 100 pages a month, so they use their establishing shots. They'll have a giant establishing shot and they'll have like little things in the background, but a lot of times it's a lot of talking, because that's like depending on the type of manga it is. But I know for like a lot of the girls romance mangas that I enjoy mostly, that is kind of one of the things that I notice a lot with them, and that I have noticed, is that especially with yaoi, they'll have like a bunch of heads, and there won't be like, there'll be kind of an object in the background type thing, but there's not a lot. Westernized comics, you'll see a lot more of the background. A lot of times they'll have that, like, I'm in the sky and I'm shooting whatevers and like cityscapes and stuff like that. But it's like, there's always an establishing shot somewhere, and then in the other panels you always see some other background elements. So that is kind of you just look at comics. I don't know. I'm such a spaz today. I'm sorry, guys. Anyways, so yeah, it's like, look at different types of comics. Look at comics from all over the world. European comics, if you want like different types of storytelling, because Americanized comics and superhero comics have a formula that they use for storytelling, and they have a formula for everything. And if you want to see different art, look at European comics. Look at Black Sad, one of the greatest fucking comics out there. It's like detective noir, like 50s type, I think it's like 40s 50s comic style. It's phenomenal. And it's like, it's anthropomorphic characters, which is neither here nor there, but it's done in watercolor, and it's one of the most gorgeous comics. Like, the comics themselves are a work of freaking art. Anyways, Black Sad, look it up, it's awesome. There are just like Milo Manara, really great artist, and I believe he's Italian. I might be wrong on that. There are a ton of artists from France that are just so amazing, and there are Russian artists that, like, it's just, the culture of comics over there, they tell stories like, it's like Japan, where they just tell, like, there are superhero stories and action stories, and then there are romance stories. It's like novels here, but it's in comics, and it's just, look at comics from all over the world. Those are only the few that I know of. Like, there are many, many more places, obviously, all over the world that do comics and draw and illustrate. Try to pull as much reference and look at their storytelling techniques. That'll really help you when you're, like, trying to draw your own comics and stuff. Obviously, don't copy directly what they're doing, because that's called plagiarism and it's not exactly great. But look at how they tell the stories, the panel choices that they use. If there's like overlapping panels, look at storytelling. And by studying all this, it'll be a lot easier for when you go to draw your comics. And don't forget to thumbnail. Anyways, I think this video has gone on long enough. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Yeah, it's been a giggly morning. Anyways, bye guys.